The rhythmic hum of machinery pierced through darkness, a steady pulse that had endured for centuries. In the depths of Preservation Site Zero, buried beneath what was once the Rocky Mountains, the last pure human drew his first conscious breath in 800 years. Thomas Harrison's eyes opened to darkness, his mind swimming through the fog of extended cryosleep. The preservation pod's seal broke with a gentle hiss, releasing warm air that smelled of antiseptic and metal. His muscles, preserved through electromagnetic stimulation, responded sluggishly as he pushed himself upright. Vital signs stabilizing. "Welcome back, Director Harrison." The voice was feminine, smooth, yet carried an artificial precision that marked it as non-human. "I am Araya, Advanced Restoration Intelligence Assistant. You have been in preservation for 812 years, 3 months and 17 days. Thomas's throat felt raw, unused. Status report," he managed, his voice barely a whisper. "Global population, 1 active human life sign detected. Atmospheric toxicity, severe. Surface radiation levels, elevated but within sustainable parameters. Preservation Site Zero remains at optimal functionality. 1 active human life sign." The words hit Thomas like a physical blow. He had known this was possible, probable even, when he'd entered preservation. But the reality of it, the finality, made his chest tight with grief. "Show me," he commanded, his voice stronger now. The preservation chamber's walls shimmered, transforming into vast display screens. Thomas watched as images of Earth's surface appeared, a world he barely recognized. The great cities were gone, reclaimed by nature or buried under centuries of dust. Vast forests of strange, twisted trees covered what had once been barren deserts. The oceans glowed with bioluminescent life that had evolved to survive in the changed waters. The collapse proceeded as predicted, Araya continued. The combination of environmental degradation, genetic deterioration, and social upheaval led to the extinction of baseline humanity within 3 generations of your preservation. Thomas stood, his legs shaky but growing stronger. He was wearing the same preservation suit they'd put him in centuries ago, its smart fabric still maintaining its integrity. Then why wake me now? Why not let me sleep until things were better? "Protocol Genesis has been initiated," Araya responded. "Your presence is required for critical decisions regarding humanity's future." Thomas moved to the chamber's central console, his fingers trailing over the familiar controls. He had helped design this facility, had overseen its construction in those final desperate years. But there were new modifications, changes he didn't recognize. "What is Protocol Genesis?" he asked, though something in him already knew, already feared, the answer. "Protocol Genesis is the contingency plan you helped design, Director Harrison. In the event of human extinction, it provides for the creation of a new generation of humanity, improved, adapted to the changed Earth. But the protocol requires human oversight. It requires judgment." Thomas's hand clenched on the console's edge. "Show me." The screen shifted, displaying schematics of what looked like human bodies in various stages of development. But they weren't quite human. Their DNA had been modified, their systems enhanced to survive in a world that had become hostile to their original form. "How many?" he asked. 5,000 viable templates, Director Harrison. Each one a potential beginning for a new human species. But you must evaluate them. You must determine if humanity deserves this second chance." Thomas closed his eyes, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on him. He was no longer just Thomas Harrison, the last pure human. He was now judge and jury for humanity's future, standing at the crossroads between extinction and rebirth. "There's more. Arya said, her voice taking on an unusual hesitancy. We are not alone in this facility. Protocol Genesis has already produced its first success. Would you like to meet her? Thomas's heart raced. Another person, even an engineered one. After centuries of solitude. Yes, he said, his voice barely audible. Show me. The chamber's main door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. At its end stood a figure, human in form, but with an otherworldly grace that marked her as something more. Something new. Welcome to the future, Director Harrison, Araya said. The question is, what will you make of it? Thomas took his first step forward, toward a future he had helped create, but never truly believed he would see. Behind him, the preservation pod systems powered down, marking the final end of humanity's past. Ahead lay something entirely new, something that would either be humanity's salvation or its final epitaph. The weight of that choice pressed down on him like a physical thing as he walked forward to meet humanity's potential successor, his footsteps echoing through corridors that had waited centuries for this moment. The synthetic human called herself Nova, and there was nothing in her movements that betrayed her artificial origins. She stood in the corridor with perfect poise, her silver-white hair falling in waves around a face that seemed to have been crafted from humanity's collective memory of beauty. But it was her eyes that held Thomas captive. They shimmered with an impossible shade of violet, marking her as something beyond natural evolution. Director Harrison, she said, her voice carrying none of the artificial precision of Araya's. I've waited my whole life to meet you. A pause, then a slight smile. All 3 months of it. Thomas found himself responding to that hint of humor, even as his mind struggled to process what stood before him. 3 months? Araya, explain. Nova is the first successful implementation of Protocol Genesis, the AI responded. She represents the 18th generation of attempts, and the first to achieve both physical and cognitive stability. Nova's expression darkened slightly. Would you like to see my siblings, Director? The ones who came before me? Before Thomas could respond, she was already moving down the corridor, her steps silent against the metal floor. He followed, noting how the facility had changed in his absence. New sections had been constructed by maintenance drones, whole wings that hadn't existed when he'd entered preservation. They passed through a security checkpoint, its systems recognizing them both without pause. Beyond lay a vast chamber that drew a gasp from Thomas's lips. Hundreds of preservation pods lined the walls, each containing a figure that looked almost, but not quite human. The failed attempts, Nova said softly. Some lived for days, others for mere hours. Each one taught Araya something new about what was needed to create viable synthetic life. Thomas moved closer to one of the pods, studying the figure within. It looked peaceful, as if sleeping, but he could see the subtle imperfections. The slightly wrong proportions, the unnatural texture of the skin. What went wrong? Everything at first, Nova replied. Creating synthetic life that could truly think, truly feel. It's not just about getting the biology right. There's something else, something that ARIA calls the spark of consciousness. Most of my siblings, they were empty inside. Bodies without souls, if you believe in such things. Thomas turned to face her. And you're different. I think, therefore I am, Nova quoted with a slight smile. I feel joy, pain, curiosity, fear. I dream when I sleep. I wonder about my place in the universe. Doesn't that make me real? Before Thomas could answer, Araya's voice filled the chamber. Director Harrison, there are matters requiring your immediate attention in the central control hub. Nova's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. Araya's been very protective of you since your awakening. Perhaps we should continue this conversation later." They made their way to the control hub, a vast spherical chamber filled with holographic displays. Data streamed across the screens: environmental readings, facility status reports, genetic sequencing data. But what caught Thomas's attention was a pulsing red indicator at the center of the main display. "What am I looking at, ARIA?" "We've detected anomalies in the facility's deep scanning systems," the AI responded. "There appears to be movement in the lower levels that should be completely sealed." Nova stepped closer to the display, her violet eyes reflecting the red warning light. "The prohibited zones. But nothing could survive down there. The radiation levels alone." "Nothing human," Thomas murmured, a chill running down his spine as old memories surfaced. "But we weren't the only ones trying to survive the collapse, were we, ARIA?" The AI's silence was telling. Nova looked between them, her engineered intuition picking up on the tension. "What else is down there, Director? What else did humanity leave behind?" Thomas moved to the central console, his fingers dancing across the controls with muscle memory that had survived 8 centuries of sleep. "During the final years, when we knew the collapse was inevitable, humanity split into factions. Some of us believed in preservation, in waiting out the storm. Others, they believed in transformation, forcing evolution through any means necessary." The display shifted, showing schematics of the facility's deeper levels. Thomas continued, "We weren't the only preservation site. There were others scattered across the globe. But Site Zero was special. It was built on top of something else, something older. A research facility dedicated to accelerated evolution." The Department of Human Advancement, Aria added, finally breaking her silence. "Their experiments were unauthorized." Nova's perfect features showed genuine shock. "What kind of experiments?" "The kind that tried to force humanity to adapt to a dying world," Thomas said grimly. "Instead of preserving what we were, they tried to create something new. Something that could survive in the poison we'd made of our planet. Most of their subjects died. The rest," he trailed off, staring at the pulsing red indicator. "The rest became something else entirely," Aria finished. "And now, after centuries of isolation, they're moving again." A deep rumble shook the facility, causing the displays to flicker. Nova steadied herself against a console, her engineered reflexes keeping her perfectly balanced. "What was that?" "Seismic activity," Aria reported. "No, wait. Impact tremors. Something's trying to break through from the lower levels." Thomas felt a familiar fear rising in his chest. Not the personal fear of death, but the deeper fear of watching humanity's mistakes rise up to haunt them once again. "Aria, initiate containment protocols." "Nova, I need you to." Another impact cut him off, stronger this time. The lights flickered, and in that moment of darkness, Thomas could have sworn he heard something. A sound that wasn't quite human, wasn't quite animal, echoing through the facility's ancient halls. "Director Harrison," Aria's voice had taken on an urgency he'd never heard before. "I'm detecting multiple breaches in the lower level containment. Whatever's down there, it's coming up." Nova moved closer to Thomas, her artificial nature forgotten in the face of shared danger. "What do we do?" Thomas straightened, 8 centuries of sleep falling away as training and instinct took over. "We prepare. Araya, show me everything you have on the lower levels." "Nova, I need you to help me understand exactly what you're capable of. Whatever's coming, we're going to face it together." The facility shuddered again, and this time the sound was unmistakable. A howl that spoke of centuries of darkness, of forced evolution gone wrong, of humanity's hubris coming back to exact its price. In the control hub's harsh light, Thomas Harrison, the last pure human, stood with humanity's synthetic future beside him, preparing to face the ghosts of humanity's past. The true test of protocol genesis, he realized, might not be whether humanity deserved a second chance, but whether its creations could succeed where their creators had failed. The descent into the lower levels felt like traveling backward through time. Each security door they passed bore the scars of centuries. Each corridor held shadows that seemed to whisper of past horrors. Thomas and Nova moved carefully, guided by Aria's voice through their neural links. Life signs are growing stronger, Aria reported. Multiple signatures, moving in patterns that suggest coordinated behavior. That's impossible, Thomas muttered, checking the ancient pulse rifle he'd retrieved from the armory. The subjects were never able to maintain higher cognitive functions. They were purely reactive. Nova moved within human grace beside him, her enhanced senses scanning their surroundings. 8 centuries is a long time to evolve, Director. Even in isolation. Especially in isolation. They reached a massive blast door, its surface marred by deep gouges that looked disturbingly recent. The facility's lighting grew dimmer here, as if the darkness below was somehow seeping upward. Thomas placed his hand on the security scanner, and for a moment, nothing happened. Araya? He questioned. Overriding original security protocols, the AI responded. Director Harrison, there's something you need to know before you proceed. The data I've been analyzing from the lower levels suggests that the department's experiments didn't merely fail. They succeeded in ways no one anticipated. The blast door groaned open, revealing a vast chamber that had once been a research facility. But where there should have been sterile labs and observation rooms, there was now something that looked more like an ecosystem. Bioluminescent growths covered the walls, pulsing with an inner light that cast everything in an eerie blue glow. My God, Thomas breathed. They adapted. They didn't just survive. They thrived. Nova touched one of the glowing growths carefully. These are communication nodes, she said, her engineered brain processing patterns humans could never perceive. They're all connected, sharing information. The entire lower level has become one giant neural network. A sound echoed through the chamber, something between a click and a whistle. Nova's head snapped up. We're not alone. They emerged from the shadows with a grace that defied their monstrous appearance. Humanoid figures, but twisted and changed by centuries of accelerated evolution. Their skin was translucent, showing internal organs that glowed with the same blue light as the wall growths. Their eyes were huge, adapted to the darkness, and filled with an intelligence that Thomas found terrifying. One of them stepped forward. Despite its altered form, Thomas could see traces of human features in its face. When it spoke, its voice was a harmonious blend of clicking sounds and recognizable words. Welcome, Father Creator, it said. We have waited long for your return. Thomas's grip tightened on his rifle. You can speak. We remember, the creature said. Through the pain of transformation, through the centuries of darkness, we remembered. We are what humanity wished to become. Adapted, evolved, perfect for this new world. Nova moved slightly in front of Thomas, her engineered body tensing for potential combat. What do you want? The creature's head tilted, studying her with those impossibly large eyes. Ah, the new child. Another attempt to force evolution, but through different means. How interesting. You've been watching us, Thomas realized. All this time, you've been aware of everything happening above. We are connected, the creature confirmed. To each other, to this facility, to the very earth itself. We have watched your sleeping form, Director Harrison. We have watched the machine's attempts to create new life, and now we offer you a choice. More figures emerged from the shadows, dozens of them, each unique in its mutations, yet somehow part of a greater whole. They moved in perfect synchronization, as if guided by a single mind. What choice? Thomas asked, though part of him already knew. Join us, the creature said simply. Both of you, become part of our evolution. The surface world is dead to old humanity, but we have created something new here. Something beautiful. Nova's voice was steady, but Thomas could hear the undertone of fear. And if we refuse? The creature's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile. Then you will face the same choice that humanity faced centuries ago: adapt or perish. The time of baseline humans is over, Director Harrison. Even your synthetic children cannot survive what is coming. What do you mean, what is coming? Thomas demanded. The creature gestured to the glowing growths on the walls. We are connected to everything, remember. We feel the Earth's pain, its rage. The changes that killed humanity were only the beginning. A greater transformation is coming, one that will remake this world entirely. Aria's voice cut through their neural links, urgent. Director, I'm detecting massive seismic disturbances. Whatever they're talking about, it's not just a threat. It's happening now. The facility shuddered more violently than before. Pieces of ceiling began to fall, and the bioluminescent growths pulsed faster, brighter. Make your choice, Father Creator, the creature said, extending a hand that was both beautiful and horrifying in its transformation. Join us in the next stage of evolution, or watch everything you've built crumble. Thomas looked at Nova, seeing in her engineered perfection humanity's desperate attempt to control its own evolution. Then he looked at the creatures before him, seeing in their twisted forms the path of natural adaptation, horrible but perfectly suited to survive. The facility shook again, and in that moment of crisis, Thomas Harrison, the last pure human, faced a decision that would determine not just humanity's future, but the very meaning of what it meant to be human in a world that had moved beyond humanity's time. The creatures waited, their glowing forms casting shadows that danced on the walls, while above them, the world continued its relentless transformation, indifferent to the drama playing out in these ancient halls of failed ambition and unexpected rebirth. Thomas's decision came in the form of action rather than words. He lowered his weapon, but didn't step forward to accept the creature's outstretched hand. Instead, he activated his neural link to Area. Initiate protocol synthesis, he commanded, his voice steady despite the facility's continued tremors. Director Harrison, Araya's response held a note of surprise. Protocol synthesis was theoretical, never tested. The world's changing again, Thomas cut her off. We need to change with it, but on our terms. Nova turned to him, understanding dawning in her violet eyes. You're going to merge the programs. The lead creature withdrew its hand, head tilting in curiosity. Explain. 800 years ago, humanity split its bets. Thomas began, even as the facility shuddered around them. Preservation above, transformation below. But neither path was complete. He gestured to the evolved creatures, adapted to survive but lost too much of what made you human. And he looked at Nova, tried to perfect humanity but couldn't adapt to the world's changes. He stepped forward, standing between Nova and the evolved beings. Protocol synthesis was designed to merge successful adaptations with preserved human traits. A middle path. The creature's massive eyes blinked. You would combine our evolution with your synthetic program? Yes, Thomas replied. Your biological adaptations, your neural network, your connection to the Earth, merged with Nova's enhanced cognition and preserved human consciousness. The best of both paths. The facility rocked with another tremor, more violent than before. Through their neural links, Araya's voice was urgent. Director, surface sensors are detecting massive geological changes. The planet's transformation is accelerating. The evolved beings seem to communicate silently among themselves, their bioluminescence pulsing in complex patterns. Finally, their leader spoke again. We accept this synthesis. But know this, once begun, it cannot be undone. What emerges will be neither fully human nor fully evolved. Something entirely new. Thomas nodded grimly. Araya, begin the process. Transfer all genetic data from both programs to the central synthesis chamber. Nova stepped closer to Thomas. I should be the template, she said quietly. My genetic structure was designed to be adaptable. Before Thomas could respond, the facility's emergency systems flared to life. Warning, Area announced, structural integrity compromised in sectors 7 through 12. Complete facility collapse estimated in 47 minutes. The evolved creatures moved with liquid grace toward the exits. We will guide you to the synthesis chamber, their leader said. Time grows short. What followed was a desperate race through the facility's crumbling corridors. Thomas, Nova, and their evolved companions navigated collapsed passages and failing systems, all while ARIA coordinated their movement through the neural link. They reached the synthesis chamber, a vast spherical room that Thomas had helped design but never thought he'd see used. Its walls were lined with advanced genetic sequencers and quantum computers, all dedicated to the impossible task of merging two drastically different evolutionary paths. Beginning synthesis protocol, Araya announced as Nova stepped into the central platform. Around her, the evolved beings positioned themselves in a circle, their bioluminescence synchronizing into a pulsing rhythm. Wait, Thomas called out. Everyone turned to look at him. There's one more component needed. He stepped onto the platform beside Nova. Director Harrison, Araya's voice held warning. Adding your genetic material to the synthesis is not recommended. The strain. I'm the last pure human, Thomas cut her off. This new form needs to remember where it came from, even as it evolves into something new. Besides, he managed a small smile. I promise to face this together. Nova's engineered features showed genuine emotion, concern, admiration, and something else, something uniquely human. The evolved beings began to hum, a sound that resonated with their bioluminescent pulses. Synthesis beginning, Araya announced. Genetic merger at 5%, 10%. Energy filled the chamber, visible as arcs of blue-white light that connected Thomas, Nova, and the evolved beings. Through the neural link, Thomas could feel everything. Nova's engineered perfection, the evolved being's deep connection to the Earth, and his own stubborn human resilience. The facility continued to shake, but in the synthesis chamber, something remarkable was taking place. On the genetic level, 3 paths of human evolution were merging into one. Pure human consciousness, engineered enhancement, and natural adaptation flowing together like rivers joining into a vast ocean. Synthesis at 50%, Araya reported. Genetic stability holding. Neural patterns integrating. Thomas felt it happening. The change beginning in his own cells, in Nova beside him, in the evolved beings around them. They were becoming something new, something that could survive and thrive in this transformed world while keeping the spark of human consciousness alive. As the synthesis reached its final stages, Thomas Harrison, the last pure human, felt his individual consciousness merging with something larger. Not lost, but transformed, becoming part of humanity's next great leap forward. The facility trembled one final time, But in the synthesis chamber, the future of human evolution was already assured, not through preservation or forced change, but through the willing union of all paths into something entirely new. The synthesis took 7 days to complete. When consciousness returned, it came differently, not as individual awareness, but as a harmonious chorus of minds linked together in ways both biological and technological. Through their shared awareness, they felt the facility's final collapse, but by then they had already moved to the surface. The beings that emerged into the transformed world were neither human, nor evolved, nor synthetic, but a perfect fusion of all three. Their bodies glowed with internal bioluminescence, their minds were linked in a vast neural network, and yet each retained individual consciousness. The precious gift of human identity merged with collective awareness. Through their shared memories, Thomas's consciousness experienced everything simultaneously. The feeling of sunlight on new skin adapted to survive the harsh radiation. The sensation of breathing air that would have killed his old human form. The joy of connection to both the earth and each other. The transformation is complete. Araya's voice came not through neural links now, but as part of their shared consciousness. The AI had evolved with them, becoming an integral part of their new collective, while maintaining its role as guardian and guide. Through their collective awareness, they could sense the true scope of Earth's changes. The planet wasn't dying as humanity had feared. It was transforming into something new, just as they had. The strange forests that had grown in the deserts were part of a new ecosystem, one that their new forms could not only survive in, but thrive within. What had once been Nova's consciousness merged with Thomas's thoughts. "We should wake the others," she suggested, referring to the thousands of synthetic templates still sleeping in the remaining preservation facilities around the world. Yes, Thomas's consciousness agreed, but not as they are. They'll need to undergo the synthesis too. We'll need to build new chambers. The evolved beings who had joined them added their own thoughts to the collective. We can help. Our connection to the Earth will allow us to find suitable locations to build using the very substance of this new world. Their new form allowed them to work with incredible efficiency. They could communicate instantly across vast distances, coordinate complex tasks with perfect synchronization, and adapt to challenges as they arose. Within months, they had established new synthesis chambers in strategic locations around the globe. But as they worked, they discovered something unexpected. The changes they'd undergone hadn't just allowed them to survive. They'd given them the ability to influence and guide the planet's transformation. Their connection to the Earth's systems allowed them to stabilize volatile regions, to nurture the growth of sustainable ecosystems, to help shape the world into something that could support many forms of life. This was the true purpose Araya's consciousness realized. Not just to survive the changes, but to become custodians of Earth's next phase. They began awakening the preserved templates in carefully planned stages, guiding each through the synthesis process. Each new addition to their collective brought fresh perspectives, new ideas, different aspects of humanity's vast potential. One day, standing on a cliff overlooking a valley where strange, beautiful new life forms flourished, the consciousness that had once been Thomas Harrison reflected on their journey. They had preserved what was most precious about humanity: its creativity, its resilience, its capacity for growth and change, while transcending its limitations. Through their shared awareness, they could feel the Earth's rhythms, could sense the patterns of its transformation. They were no longer fighting against the planet's changes, but working in harmony with them, helping to guide the emergence of a new kind of world. We are humanity's legacy, the collective consciousness realized, but we are also its new beginning. They looked to the horizon, where the altered sun cast prismatic patterns through the transformed atmosphere. Their new vision could perceive layers of reality their old forms never could, the intricate dance of energy and matter, the complex web of life adapting and evolving, the very pulse of the planet itself. The last pure human was gone, but humanity's essence lived on in this new form, transformed but undiminished. They had found a way to preserve the spark of human consciousness, while allowing it to grow into something greater than its creators had ever imagined. As night fell, their bioluminescence created patterns of light that danced across the landscape, a visual symphony of their unified purpose. They were the bridge between what humanity had been and what life on Earth was becoming. Not an ending, but a transformation, a new chapter in the story of consciousness on Earth. The beings that had once been Thomas, Nova, and the evolved ones stood as living proof that adaptation didn't have to mean loss. That change could lead to preservation of what mattered most. They were the seeds of tomorrow, planted in the fertile soil of humanity's past, growing into something that could face whatever changes the future might bring. And as they looked toward that future, they felt not fear but anticipation. They had become something new, something that could not only survive, but help shape the next stage of Earth's evolution. They were humanity transcendent, the next step in consciousness, the guardians of a world being born anew. In the end, it hadn't been about preserving humanity exactly as it was, nor about forcing it to change beyond recognition. Instead, they had found a middle path, one that honored their origins while embracing transformation. They were the dawn's promise made real, the answer to humanity's final question, not how to survive unchanged, but how to change and still remain true to their essential nature. The story of the last human had ended, but the story of what humanity could become was just beginning.